Hi, this is episode 409 of Control Talk, now your smart buildings videocast and podcast. My name is Eric Stromquist, and you are watching the HVAC and Smart Building Controls podcast, where we talk about all things HVAC and smart building controls, including sales and marketing. It's spring break, and I had the family out in New Mexico. Right now we're at White Sands, New Mexico, which is really a beautiful, beautiful spot. So got a great show for you this week. We got a really cool product that we'll be talking about. Our guest will be talking about when he comes on. Let's get to it. For all you people last week who reached out with wanting more of the nonverbal communication tips, I heard you loud and clear, so here you go. Here's your nonverbal communication tip number 2. So think about it this way. As we talked about last week, we said that the words we speak only constitute 7% of the communication process, and it's the last 7%, which basically means that the other 93% is all nonverbal communication. And if you can master nonverbal communication or just know a couple of things about it, it can greatly improve your effectiveness in any sort of communication, from communication with your spouse to your employees to your fellow coworkers, or most importantly in sales. It really speeds the sales process up just doing a couple of these simple nonverbal hacks. You'll remember last week's nonverbal hack was to speak at the rate of speed that the person you're speaking to talks at. It allows them to process information in a much more effective way. And part of the reason that that works is that people trust and like people that are either like them or people they would like to be like. I mean, think about it. If you ever just instantaneously met somebody and you liked and trusted them, or maybe you just saw somebody across the room and you go, there's something about that person that I like. You couldn't put your finger on it, but you just liked them. It happens with all of us. Well, this is all part of the nonverbal communication phenomenon. Again, people like and trust people that are like them. Now, when we talk and we have rapport with people, that's one way we establish rapport, and we like the same things, and we tend to trust people that like the same things we do. Okay, but it also applies to that 93%, okay? And how do you tap into that 93% where you don't even have to open your mouth and you have a better chance of establishing a rapport and trust with somebody? Well, our bodies and minds are connected in something called a cybernetic loop. Okay, which is a fancy way of saying try to slouch down and get really excited, you can't do it. Try to stand up straight, take a deep breath, and get depressed, you can't do it. Our bodies and minds are connected together in a loop. Okay, and this has a bunch of ramifications, but one of them being is if you have the same posture somebody else does, meaning that maybe they got their head tilted this way and you have your head tilted that way, or if you tend to sit up straight and they sit up straight, or you slouch and they slouch, there's going to be a level of rapport established through this process called mirroring. And mirroring could be the posture, it could be the rate of speed like we talked about last week at which somebody speaks, or it could be how people breathe. You can notice that people breathe at different levels. If you start to breathe and mirror their breath, you'll find that you'll establish a deep rapport with that. Okay, so why is this important? Well, it's important among other things because it allows you to establish a trust and rapport. But it's also a huge timing mechanism. If you think about any form of communication, timing is virtually everything. You can say the same thing, and if you say it at the right time, it gets a positive response. If you say it at the wrong time, it can blow up in your face. So using mirroring in a process called pacing and leading will give you a huge advantage in all your communications. So here's how it works. So let's hypothetically say that you meet somebody on a sales call and they've got their arms crossed, which is never really a good sign. It typically means that people are closed down to new ideas. Well, you could try to talk them out of that, or you could just cross your arms too while you're speaking with them. Okay, and then you begin to mirror. As you begin to mirror, there's going to be more trust because that 93% is kicking in. These people are like me. At a nonverbal level, they are like me. Now, here's the cool thing. So you can mirror like that, but then if you want to understand the timing, using this example, you uncross your arms. Now, the rule about rapport is once people are in rapport at a nonverbal level, they will struggle to stay in rapport, which basically means if you uncross your arms and that level of trust has been established, they'll uncross their arms too. They'll start mirroring you. They'll follow you with your postures and your movements. that's a cue that, okay, now trust has been established. We can move forward in the communication. So this happens everywhere. Don't take my word for it. Next time you go out to a restaurant or out, notice people. You'll see that people are in rapport. They're sitting with the same postures. They might have the same gestures. You'll see it, and you can see when they get out of rapport. You can see when they're in rapport and somebody moves, the other person will follow them. They'll go from this to this or whatever. It really doesn't matter what it is, but it is something to notice, and it will give you a huge, huge advantage in all your communication. All right, before we get to our guest this week, a word from our sponsor, my favorite distributor, Stromquist and Company out of Atlanta, Georgia. Stromquist has been serving customers since 1952, not only providing great products, but great customer support and great service. With offices in Atlanta and Orlando, Stromquist keeps a huge inventory of HVAC controls, smart building controls, building automation controls, and industrial controls. They have a highly trained technical staff that's available to serve you via phone, or if you're one of those people who like to use a website, Stromquist has a very intuitive, easy to use website at www.stromquist.com. So give them a chance at stromquist.com. Tell them.
All right, I'm really excited about my guest today. His name is Tom Joslin. He is with 75F. You might not have heard of 75F yet, but I'm telling you, they got some really cool stuff. So, Tom, welcome to the show. And, man, before we get into 75F, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on, Eric.
Bet.
So I've been in the controls industry for, since the late 80s, since I was just very young. So my dad was actually an installer for John's Controls. And one day he says to me, hey, you should probably figure out how this electronic stuff works. I think it's going to be the future of controls. And, well, here I am, 30-some years later, still doing this. So, yeah, he was right. And I remind him of that periodically. So, I've had a long history in the controls industry and worked for some major manufacturers.
Okay,
and,
so
so
you've been around the block a few times, so to speak.
A couple times, yeah.
So why 75F? What had you come on with 75F?
Yeah, so it's an interesting company that, this company formed about 2012, based in Minneapolis, and they really had the CEO came out with an idea of saying, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this and an easier way to do this. One of his mottos, he always says, things just need to go click. And that's kind of where we are. And I really liked that idea because trying to get jobs completed with controls is getting harder and harder to do. So this was a really interesting way of going to market that gave you those tools to be able to do those things that just made it go click. It gives everybody a chance to put in a control system that maybe didn't have the opportunity to do that before.
Well, when I look at the product, Tom, I can't help but think about Apple. Sort of the simplicity, just the way things are packaged, comes out of the box. I mean, essentially, it's all on a mesh wireless network, right? So it comes out of the box. It's pre-programmed if you want it to be. You basically mount it and turn the buttons on. And, well, you explained that to me, but my point being is it's, I think, a really well thought out design.
Yeah, so we're a complete package from top to bottom, the edge to cloud. So a lot of these devices that are out there right now, or I should say companies are trying to do an overlay, right? They have something that sits on top that you interface with that does a lot of neat things. So 75F is a complete top to bottom solution. We make our own sensors, controllers, and use all of those things in our full stack, okay? And what that does is that gives us the capability to have all of ours easily integrate into a cloud service so you can get all of the data that you want natively from the job that you've installed, right? Not getting it from another system.
So very, very cool. So I imagine it's very scalable then.
Very scalable. So you can have one system or 1,000 systems on each of your jobs. So if you have like one gas station or 1,000 gas stations, just to give an example, or a campus of one building or 50 buildings. Very scalable. When you log in, you're only logging into one place instead of logging into every building.
once you get that data in, tell me about that. How does that work?
Yeah, so our front end, our cloud service is called Facilisite, and what that does is it gives you all of the data that you want trending every minute for as long as you own that system. So that's a lot of information. And the other thing we do is we use Haystack. Everything's natively got Haystack into it.
Oh,
so,
very, very, very cool. We're big Haystack fans here too. So was that kind of a no-brainer for you guys, or did you guys sort of talk about it for a while?
No, I think that was early on. That was something that was needed. So that gives you the capability to go out and search for either from one building or from all 100 buildings you have on your system. So it's a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing too is that by doing that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but by doing that, if you had different people putting it in and they were naming things a little bit different, because you got the Haystack tags in there, all that information comes back in a certain way that everything essentially gets translated to mean the same thing. So if somebody goes air handling unit 1 and somebody else goes AHU 1, without something like Haystack, you would have somebody have to come and link those together. But with the Haystack tagging convention, it happens behind the scenes and seamless, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. How many times have you seen Z&T or room temp, or there's 5 different ways to call a room or a zone, what you want it to be. Every one of our jobs looks exactly the same, except for obviously the floor plan. But naming conventions are exactly the same at every job.
That's very cool. Well, listen, for our audience who might not know, because I know there's been so much development in wireless, but I know early on, and some people might still have some stigma about that wireless is just not going to work. You got to go do all these tests to make sure the building is going to work, and so on and so forth. But talk to me about your technology, the mesh technology and the self-healing and stuff like that. And if customers are concerned about it's not going to work, maybe assuage those fears.
Well, and that's obviously something that I've thought about too. And going back to my old install days, when I had to do some wireless jobs, you just kind of went, wireless. Nowadays, that's not the case at all. It's pretty incredible. So this is a 900 megahertz mesh network. So, and it's a proprietary network, right? So we're using an 802.11 type brand, if you will, in that bandwidth. But it has the capability to go through, walls, concrete, and if you've got different floors, we have no problem going through floors, but we try to maintain everything on one floor if we can. But I really have not had any problem with the wireless part. It's really pretty neat, self-healing. So every device is actually a router, right? So if you think about it that way, so there's no reason to add any kind of a router or a jumper or anything like that. It's going to go from controller to controller. It's not all back to one device. Right.
Well, explain to our audience real quick, just 10,000-foot overview of mesh versus other way, like point-to-point in terms of wireless.
Yeah, so like I was saying, it goes from controller to controller to be able. So if it's got to go from point A to point B, where our front end is clear across the building, it can jump from controller to controller through the building to get that information back.
Right. So, like, for example, if it was point to point, it'd have to go from point A to point B to point C to point D.
Right.
Then back to the controller. And my understanding of a mesh, and I'm a novice, so if I get this wrong, you definitely got to call me out on this. My understanding of mesh is if you go A and it's looking to pass the information to B, but B's not ready to receive, then it'll look for C or D or E or F.
Right.
And it'll just keep looking till it'll find somebody that can hand that information off. Is that close?
Yeah, that's really close, yeah. See, you're an expert.
Technology is not my strong suit, but so the mesh is the way to go. And then the 900 megahertz, I mean, the frequency of that is much higher, which would allow it to go through concrete if it had to, or go up a couple of floors. You've got, about 100 feet between nodes, if you will?
Absolutely, yep. 100. I say 100, but it could, if it's an open line, you could probably go 150.
Okay.
Yeah. But,
it has come such a long way, Tom. I mean,
it really has. It's amazing.
Yeah. Back in the day when I was selling these systems, you have to go out and you have to check it because you never knew it. If you had a concrete wall, Most likely somebody was, going to find a way to wire through that wall. And
Right.
That's you just don't have to do that anymore.
Right. Now, I will correct that our sensors are not wireless.
Okay.
So the sensors actually have to be wired. So those are not wireless. Only the controller is wireless.
Right, but you got to figure your sensors are going to be pretty close to your controller anyway, so that's not going to be that big of a deal.
Right.
But yeah, again, the whole concept of lowering the install cost by having it, out of the box, you mount them, you wire your sensors, and it's just sort of looking at the videos on your website. It seems like it's just kind of push a button and everything discovers itself. So self-discovery, is that part of it?
Yeah. So we don't require any kind of laptop. We don't require any kind of software you have to load on anything. So we give you all the tools to install the job. So this does a lot of different things. So when you get to the job site, you can take it has an Android tablet that is your base, all right? We call that a CCU. So that CCU has you take the tablet off of it, and you walk over to your first controller that you have, and you Bluetooth. So you'll connect to it via Bluetooth. And it's just like pairing your phone in your car. It's as simple as that. And then once you're connected via Bluetooth, you choose what application you want it to have. And then after you've gone, you can commission it. There's a couple of buttons in there that you can override all the buttons, all the inputs and outputs, and check everything. You're done with that. You go to the next one.
Let me hop in real quick, Tom. So you're saying that the program's already built in.
Yes, sir.
So sort of walk me through this. So I'm standing at a controller, and it's an air handling unit or a VAV or whatever. I just kind of scroll down and pick the one I got?
Yep.
How cool is that?
And it's an ASHRAE Guideline 36 program. It's not something that we just made up of our own. So we are using industry standards so that they'll meet the specifications for jobs.
Oh, very, very cool. Very cool. Okay, so we do that. We wired the sensors. Then we just go get a cup of coffee, and so we can bill a complete hour for the installation, and then we're good to go, right?
Right. So we did a study not too long ago, this past fall, where we had an experienced programmer who came into our office, and we had him install a competitor's VAV controller. And we told him his goal is to get that installed, programmed, up to some kind of an enterprise type of server, and then up into a cloud. It took him 3 hours and 44 minutes.
Wow.
For one. And this was an experienced guy.
Yeah.
So we did the same thing and had him do our system. And he had not done our system before. And it took him 45 minutes.
Wow. I got to tell you, if I'm an integrator, I'm thinking looking for ways to be more profitable. That's probably a pretty good pretty much a no-brainer.
Plus, also, you think of how hard is it to find talent labor these days.
Yeah.
Right? You got to find that guy that knows how to do 10 different things. He's got to be able to integrate all these different pieces and parts. With this type of system, you don't have to have that really expensive, highly technical person to be able to get a job up and running. And that's really what we're looking for.
Absolutely. Now, one question I suspect people are going to ask, Tom, is since it seems like it's plug and play, I mean literally plug and play where you can select the program, is it customizable at all, or are you kind of locked into the ASHRAE programs that you have punched in?
Yeah, everybody asks that question. Well, I like it, but can I change this? And the answer is no. So we try to get as many custom programs, and we have quite a few. I really don't have a lot of problems finding a way to get jobs complete. But now, if you were doing like a whole central plant type of situation, this is probably not working for you, right? This is for that smaller to mid-sized commercial building when your contractor gets a phone call from somebody says, hey, I've got this job. It's got 10 rooftop units on it and 15 zones. And they're like, well, what are we going to use? We get a price from, I'd say, one of the big guys, right? And it's just a little bit of overkill for what they're trying to accomplish. So this allows those mechanical contractors who typically in the past would not been able to do a job like that, they can bring in this type of system and install it and do it themselves.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you guys, I'm a marketing guy at heart, so I love the fact that you guys have a clearly defined market. You're not trying to take the world over with this. You know exactly who your customers are.
Yep. I tell people it's another tool for your toolbox, right? So you're missing a whole, section of the market out there if you're not going after this market size. Everybody wants to get the big, huge job. Well, you're missing out on a lot of the ones that don't have any kind of system in it. In fact, there's probably 80% of the commercial buildings under 200,000 square feet that really have hardly any or no control system in it. And those are the buildings we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest marketplace for sure, I think, in our industry. Tom, I wanted to ask you again, being a marketing guy, I noticed that one of the real highlights on your website was solving indoor air quality problems. Was that just kind of a marketing thing, or do you guys really have something sort of special with indoor air quality?
Yeah, so we have a series of things that will help you with the indoor air quality. We even have, there's a little, I call it just a little button you can push, and it'll actually go over and try to find more indoor air quality issues and help you with those fresh air exchanges, right? So one of our products called the Hyperstat has 8 sensors in it, which seems crazy. It has CO2, humidity, VOC. You can do particulate matter 2.5. It's got light, sound. It's got all of these different sensors built into it to really help and get those type of systems in buildings, so you're not having those indoor air quality problems. And you can find out where they are, without having to buy 5 different sensors.
That's really cool, especially I think, one of the things that COVID taught us, I think, was how important indoor air quality is.
Absolutely.
And, getting ahead of that curve and focusing on that, especially with the way you guys are doing it, right? I'm assuming, you got your controller, you wire your sensor to your controller, boom, you get on your mesh network, and there's that data if you need it.
Yep.
Tom, are you guys seeing customers, clients, end users asking for, more analytics around indoor air quality? Hey, show us that our space is being protected and we're getting the right airflows in?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in this market I was telling you about, of these commercial buildings under, 250,000 square feet. They've really been ignored. Like, if you go to like a lot of the malls or small type buildings, I know there's not a lot of malls anymore, but they're transferring to an external mall, what I call, where all the doors on the outside.
Yes.
Those type of buildings are, really have really been ignored because what they're trying to do is just put these up, fast and cheap, right? They don't have any kind of elaborate control system built into them, but they want that. They want to know the data. These commercial developers are wanting to know what's going on inside these buildings now and how we can make them more efficient. And basically, just like I was saying before, when they go to get a price for a large control system, a little bit of sticker shock, right? So this system allows them to put that in and get all of that data back to them quickly and efficiently.
It was funny because before COVID, when owners would call us, it was, how can we save energy? Now it's, how can we make our space more attractive so people will come back into the space? And I think, if you're a big realty company, you want to have everything at your disposal to say, hey, clients that come here, they're going to be protected. The indoor air quality is going to be great. We can show you, we can prove it. We're still going to save the energy for you. So I think it's got to become a big part of marketing for the real estate people to their potential tenants.
Right. Our vice president of sales, Jay Kress, always says, how many people out there have something on your phone that you control at home? And everybody does, right? Everybody's used to having that capability to do something on your phone. Well, with this type of system, you can have that on your phone quickly and easily. We have an app that you can pull out of your pocket, and you can just give them access to their room, right? So they can just change that just like they would at their house. Try to make it as simple as possible. Because it's all cloud-based, they don't have to get on any kind of internal network and try to figure out an IP and none of that. It's just a matter of just like you would putting in like your own home security system. We want it to be as easy as that.
Well, your thermostat, at least the one I saw, looked an awful lot like the Nest. So did Apple copy you guys, or did you guys sort of take a page out of their playbook?
Well, yeah, like I said, Deepinder, our CEO, had that need at his house, and that's where this whole thing kind of started. And he really wanted to have some kind of a system that would allow him to zone it in his house a little bit better. So being the guy that he is, he kind of figured that out, how to do that at his house.
Yeah.
And he was like, there's nothing really good. There's no good way to do this. So he made it. But
I tell you,
it is similar.
Tom, how do you guys go to market?
Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, we're targeting the mechanical contractors who typically have not been able to install a job before. And we want to be able to and have them install that project quickly and easily. The market is like the 250,000 square foot and below. I want them to think of, this is more of, like I said, a tool in their toolbox to go after these small to mid-sized projects.
So would they contact you guys directly?
That's 75f.io.
.io, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
F.io.
Yep. We have a marketing team that's second to none. They are incredible. They will, if you have some kind of interest, they're going to find you.
Applaud you guys and wish you the very best. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking time to come on the show and tell us about your company and your product.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I appreciate it so much.
All right, there you go. Another week on Control Talk Now, your smart buildings videocast and podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant. And as Hunter Thompson used to say, buy the ticket, take the ride, and I'll be back in Atlanta next week.